Hi everyone, it's Jill Foster here for Penny Black, and if you love hedgies, then you are in the right place because we are going to stamp and paint some heart hedgies. So the wonderful stamp set that we are using to create these cards today is one of Penny Black's newest. It is 30-785 Heart Hedgies, and these little critters just couldn't be cuter. I couldn't wait to make a card with them. Now, before we begin, I just wanted to mention that I will have a full supply list up on screen at the very end of the video. It will list everything that I'm using in today's video. So if you want to check it out in more detail, just hit pause at the end of the video and you can look at it closely. Now, I'm doing my painting today with my palette of Arteza gouache colors as well as Distress Ink REINKERS used as watercolors. And if you want some more information about these paints and my palette, I will link to several other videos that I have done featuring these paints and this palette. But essentially, I am using them just as I would a watercolor paint. And so I'm mixing them with some water and applying them on. The gouache paints give me more of an opaque, I would say sort of velvety, soft look, and the Distress Ink REINKERS are great for adding that punch of color, and they're more of a transparent ink. Now, to stamp this, I've stamped on Decanson 140-pound watercolor paper, and I stamped this with Ranger archival ink in the color of Acorn. So it's a nice, rich brown ink, but not quite as stark as a black. So I love that for these little hedgies. And I am just first painting in his body and leaving those hearts to paint next. Now this looks like there's a lot of detail and a lot of little hearts on here, but they really don't take much time. Because the detail is in the illustration, you do not need to give a lot of time or thought to any of your shading because it's going to look complete and beautiful and cute just with very basic painting or coloring. You could do this with colored pencils, with alcohol-based markers, whatever you love to color with. This is a really, really fun stamp set to stamp and paint and color. So I did a little shading on his body here, and I wanted to give him a little bit of a rosy cheek. While that was still wet, I just dropped in that color. Now I went ahead and dried everything, and I am just going to now paint in the hearts. And you can see I'm not doing any fancy type of shading at all. I'm just picking one shade of a color and sort of balancing it and putting it randomly onto the hearts. So I just want it equally spread out. And this way I don't have to go back and forth between my colors. It just makes things faster and easier when painting in these hearts. So I am just going to go ahead and continue to do that here. I love with these hedgies with the hearts in there that there are so many different color schemes that you could use for this. And this is great to send a friendship card, a Valentine's card, wedding, anniversary. Even if I think it'd be fun if it was a very playful wedding that you could use the wedding colors for the hearts on here. Even a thank you card, this would be great for showing love and appreciation, thinking of you. So that's one thing that's really great with Penny Black's love themed collection is that we are very careful to make images that are versatile for you, that don't just have to be used for Valentine's Day. So we are, again, here I am just continuing to paint these in using different pinks, a little bit of purple in there, and now a little bit of red. I am just picking my paints over on the side there, gouache or the Distress Ink REINKERS based on the colors that I liked the best. So I wasn't worried about using a particular paint for a particular heart, just picking out the colors that I liked best. And as you can see, I'm not doing any shading with those, just coloring them in. So very easy to create with these hedgies. I just have a few more of those whimsical little hearts left to do, and I decided to add in just a little bit of yellow here to warm things up. And I always like how when I add yellows to things that it just seems to add a little bit of extra life. So even though most of these hearts are reds and purples and pinks, a little bit of yellow there is just fun. Now I decided here I did want to darken up just a little bit of this Hedgies body. So I am using the Distress Ink Reinker in Gathered Twigs here to do that, just right on top. Where I want it the darkest is where I put the color first, and then sort of as it runs out on my paintbrush, then I am moving away from where I wanted it the darkest. And I really like how that helps those hearts to pop in a little bit more, and I think it just gives a more realistic look to the Hedgie, if there can be such thing for a Hedgie that's covered in hearts and has a smile on his face. But anyways, I just think that added a lot to that Hedgie there, just to darken things up around that edge. Now I wanted to create a scene with this Hedgie, and to do that I love to go through my stash of creative dies. So here I have gotten the creative die. This is Flower Flourish, and I cut it from the same watercolor paper that I used for the Hedgie, and I'm just using some of the same colors that I used on the hearts for the Hedgie, and I'm painting the die cuts with this and just doing a lot of different layering on there. And this is a great way to create a scene and also to tie in a die cut look, like image of this flower, to a stamped image, because sometimes they don't go together, because a stamped image is going to have an outline and a die cut doesn't, but you can very easily tie them in by using some of the same colors that you used on both of those. So I did off screen fussy cut that Hedgie just very easily. It actually cuts very easily. It's a quick one to do. And I am going to finish up painting this beautiful die cut. Can be used in lots of different ways, but it is fun because I think this Hedgie kind of looks like it's looking up at something, so I felt like it needed to have something to look up at. You can see there I started with the gouache colors for the green and then dropped in some Distress Reinker to really add some vibrancy to that painting. And just darkening up the stem a little bit too. Now for my scene, I decided to go ahead and paint the ground here, and one of the main reasons was I wanted to pop up the Hedgie with some dimensional foam adhesive. And so if I had the ground painted and the sky painted on one sheet of paper, the Hedgie I felt like would look like it was kind of floating in the scene. So by cutting a little strip here for the ground, then I'm able to pop that up on the card front and add the Hedgie like it's standing on that. Just gives a little, makes a little more sense to the dimension, if that makes any sense at all. So here I am just painting the sky in onto this watercolor paper, and this card is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, so a standard A2 size card. I'm just going back and forth here to layer in the color. I wanted it a little bit darker near the bottom, and then I went ahead and dried that, and once it was dry I stamped my sentiment from our new transparent set 30-786 Dream Love Sentiments. Again, you might want to pause here and take a look at all of the neat sayings that are a part of this set. So you can see here is the finished card. I embellished that flower with a little heart die cut and a gem on there. And you can see there how I have popped up the ground and popped up the Hedgie onto the front of the card. Now I did make another card design using these same Hedgies that are from the stamp set. I just had to have a couple of them looking at each other. I used the same painting techniques on this as well. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website and blog, and I'll be linking all of those for you down on in the YouTube description box below, as well as linking to the stamps and dies used in today's video. And here is the complete supply list as promised.